Stephan.
Jamie, good morning.
Good morning. All right. All right. All right. So I don't know if this is take 5, but here we go.
we've we've once again succeeded.
You know, some things are beyond our immediate control. We just have to roll with the technology punches and come out shining when we get there. So
Yeah,
so
this is here we are are we at episode 30?
I think we are. I have lost count now. So I only think
Here
of the number when I go to type it in at the end.
here we are at episode 30, and the Unconstrained podcast is just as technologically inept as it was an
uh,
episode, let's say 3.
you
we
know, it
we made
we
some
tried.
we made some major leaps to episode 3, and now we've plateaued
Well,
technologically.
here we are. So
Yeah.
okay, so topic wise, we were catching up before we had some technology issues. We talked a little about coffee, which I loved. But we were talking about that, like, kind of coming to grips, and maybe you'll recap it a little better, but kind of coming to grips with, like, when somebody else withdraws and needs their space, and how we navigate that ourselves. Like, did I do something to cause it? Maybe it's not about me, maybe it is. But there's a I have to tell you, I've been working through some similar stuff, and I don't know if I'm drawing my own conclusions there, but I'll let you kind of pick up with what you were talking about, because it really resonated, what you were saying. So I would love to just jump right into that.
Yeah, well, it's it is when we choose to love people in our lives, and we want to give them as much of us as possible, right? We want to share time, we want to spend time with people, and then they withdraw for whatever reason. I don't necessarily know. But my first instinct is try to figure it out and fix it for the other person, because I don't like the way I feel, and the way I feel is driven by me thinking somehow it's my fault. And so this is an old pattern when we are in dysfunctional families, right? And when we think we can fix it or fix other people or be better or be different, and then that will solve the situation, when it may or may not have anything to do with the situation. And
Exactly.
so that uh, I surprised myself this week with how deep and how old that pattern is, and how it kept me from just being myself. And I did a good job of recognizing it, but it was a fine reminder that I need to continue to focus on being the best person I can be, enjoying myself, treating myself well, so that when I am around other people, I can be the clearest, most supportive, most nice, whatever that is. I can be the best version of myself in
You
the
know,
presence of others.
yeah. So you know what? I've been on a bit of an emotional surf of this capacity myself, and it's I think my default nature, I feel like I'm an optimist. I'm wired that way. um it's not that I'm not without my emotional ups and downs, that I haven't experienced my own form of depression, and um yet. So I've been actually trying, plugging away on a blog post about remaining buoyant
Mm,
while living with
perfect
someone,
word.
and while living with someone who is deeply depressed. And because I think like it's really interesting. I find myself um I internalize it a lot, that like is, and he's not trying to, let it out or whatever. But when you live with somebody who is depressed, it can affect you. Yes. Because of exactly what you were just talking about. You care deeply about this person. You care and you don't like to see them in pain. You want to help. But at the same time, I am very aware that there's probably not much I can do to affect the situation beyond just being there and letting them know that I'm here. I'm here. I'm not going to try to, turn the situation positive or just think of things this way or just do that. I know all too well that that's not how it works, and it's, but navigating that, and to me that was the word, the word buoyant is the word that I go to, because that's what I feel like I am providing for myself. I'm trying to remain buoyant and not get pulled under, while also experiencing my own ups and downs, right? Like you go through your own stuff too, but your care and concern for somebody who's going through a lot is also like, and I don't know, I guess like what I'm trying to articulate is I know all I can affect really is me, right? Like I try to bring the focus back on what I do have control over, to extend a hand and say I'm here if you need me, but at the same time I have to focus on what I have control over. I do not have control over that situation, and as much as I want to influence it, I don't know that I can. um
Hmm.
anyway, that's
Yeah.
I've been navigating that for a while.
Well, it's
Yeah.
the word buoyant is brings up so many, is a perfect word for that, because if we think about buoyant, if we are bobbing in the ocean or swimming in the river of life, you need to stay above the surface in order to navigate, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise you hit a rock that's underwater, or you're not breathing.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
in the worst case, you're not breathing if you don't remain buoyant. You can't look around you, and you have to jump into the river of life to move forward, move down it to get to where you're going. And if you're not buoyant, you're going to hit rocks. Or if you don't even feel that you could ever be buoyant, you just sit by the riverside and watch it go by, right? Life goes by. You don't do anything.
Or you're a
And I
stone
just,
sitting at the bottom, right? Like, I mean,
right. Yeah. In the absolute worst case, the river takes you out. And so, oh, it brings up so many incredible metaphor. And I think of learning life saving. Uh, when uh, when I was in college, I learned, you know, a, a lot of us in the summers we learn life saving because that may be a job. And in college, I had the option to learn life saving instruction. So I was a
yeah,
life saving instructor. And there's so many things about life saving that are counterintuitive. And I'm talking about the physical act of lifeguard on a beach,
yeah,
jumping into the water, saving someone's life. The first thing is don't get too close to someone because they might drown you.
yeah, yeah,
And uh, and in life saving class, the thing that we would practice the most, and everyone had license to do this in life saving class, was to try to drown anyone at any given moment during this, like, this is high level life-saving instructor class, where you have the license, if you're just swimming in the pool, to jump somebody and try to drown them. And then we would go through the Aikido. So this is just like martial arts class,
Yeah.
basically. We were learning martial arts level moves to, one, save our own lives, and then potentially save the life of somebody who is desperate trying to drown us. Now, in many cases, people aren't trying to drown us, but they're in so much distress that they are a danger anyway.
Yeah.
And so we would learn all kinds of moves of, like, somebody had you around the neck. There was a move where you grab the arm, and the first thing you do is you pull that person underwater so that they are drowning even more. And so the shock of that gets them to let go. Now, this is not a technique for somebody in emotional distress, but the point is, to all of this, in all of these life-saving techniques, the number one priority is for the lifesaver to remain buoyant, to remain free from the person who is drowning, so that the lifesaver can effect the best or most appropriate rescue without drowning themselves. And in some cases, that's just staying away and throwing them something. In other cases, it's literally pulling yourself out of a headlock and then putting the swimmer, or putting the person who's drowning, in a headlock,
Yeah.
some sort of grasp
Yeah.
around the chest, and then swimming them to shore. But if they are freaking out and trying to drown you, you have to get away from them.
Yeah.
And so those are the life-saving metaphors that come to mind. Those are extreme, but they and these, we have examples of these all over, right? Put your oxygen mask on first before you help somebody else. All of these metaphors exist in so many different areas of our lives, and lifeguarding and life-saving in the realm of being a lifeguard is like that. And so that, you reminded me of that immediately when you use the word buoyant. And I think buoyant is a perfect and beautiful metaphor that we need to remember. It's like, how do we remain buoyant? How do we remain able to observe what's going on around us in a 360-degree fashion, versus being pulled under, or being so attached that all we can feel is somebody else's. Because as somebody who has a number of empathetic skills,
yes. Yep. That too. That was my next point,
right,
too.
and someone who is a natural, who is a born problem solver, somebody who loves to put the Lego pieces together, it's irresistible, right, to want to use my energy to try to figure it out for someone. But I am not in somebody else's mind. I am in my mind. I'm in my mind, and I know my world the best. And so imagining that I could even unravel something, think of how hard it is for us to unravel our own mysteries.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to observe and see things on the surface and intuit,
Yep.
but to communicate those things back to someone when they're in distress. And I had this experience also. You also reminded me of another experience many months ago, before we even started this podcast, where I met somebody who I really enjoyed. as somebody in a social circle, uh, and yet they were undergoing extreme. And what I enjoyed about them too is that they were vulnerable, that they were open, and then they shared something about something super extreme that's happening in their life with one of their family members, and it was tragic. And I I just tried in one moment, tried to put a positive spin on it. That so upset this person because they were so invested in,
Yeah. Yeah.
made everything, it made everything awkward afterwards because I wasn't accepting her point of view, which was this is a tragedy and there's no way to fix it. Right. I didn't let her, I broke the bubble of her reality, and she immediately repaired it. And then, um, and this is not someone I was dating. This is just somebody I see I saw in my regular activities at the gym, climbing, somebody I know in the climbing community who is a really good climber, but also has had some incredible tragedy in her life.
Yeah.
But there was no way. In a way, I was very arrogant, thinking that that I was so buoyant or so positive, or I had some insight that I thought could get her out of it. But that was arrogant, really,
It's
ultimately.
hard
Thinking that I
sometimes.
could
Yeah.
help. It's
That's
super hard.
that's
Super
hard
hard.
because yeah, I feel like I relate to that a lot because yeah, it's that natural there's like a natural inclination to want to help, but that's not the answer, right? And like, I mean, I know even from my own experience with depression and loss and grief and tragedy, like I just needed space and time to work through it in my own way and to kind of navigate that in my own way. And when I was ready to reach out, I did. But my way of reaching out wasn't maybe stereotypical, or a lot of times people are like, get professional help or whatever, and it didn't even occur to me to get professional help when I was going through what I was going through. I had to find my own way. um and it's one of those things that's really, boy, it makes me emotional even just kind of working through it here. It's hard to see somebody that you care about going through stuff like that. Bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
You want to help, you can't help, but at the same time, like you want to and I don't even want to use the word protect. It's like I know that what I am able to control, like what I have the power over, what energy I have control over is what I need to focus on, right? Like I am capable of what of manifesting what energy I put out into the world. And even though like the energy that may coexist with me is it's like, I mean, this is a person I love so much, right? I don't know. I don't even know where to go from there. It's like I know that all I can do is sort of like just remain buoyant. It's but it's hard to do that sometimes. It's hard to remain buoyant when you coexist with somebody who struggles with buoyancy themselves. I don't know.
Well, yeah. If you're attached to that person, and again, if we're going back to the life saving metaphor, that person can drown you.
Right.
There are
Yeah.
there are lifeguards who have been drowned by the people they try to rescue if they're not really good lifeguards. Right. And
Lifeguard skills, Stefan.
lifeguard
It's
skills.
like,
I
and
never thought
it's
this. I never thought that would come in handy, but it really is an incredible. When I think of here, we are. We would just be you. We would just be swimming in the pool, doing our lifeguard tests and skills, and teaching lifeguard tests and skills, and then in an instant, somebody would come from behind and jump me
yeah.
and put me in a headlock and try to pull me under, try to get on top of me so that they wouldn't drown in this, in the simulation. And the first thing you do is like, I'm gonna take you down with me. We're just gonna go drown. We're gonna go drown together until you see that you need to let go, right? Like both people need to let go in order, like you take it down the way the lifeguarding system works is you take both people go down until somebody lets go.
Well, and that's the thing too, is sometimes that awareness. Okay, so going back to the context that you shared as well, is like you tried to kind of offer maybe that little the little lifesaver ring, or
Yeah,
the
the little
the floaty vest.
golden nugget.
Yeah, like, and it was like, hey, I'm not asking for you to save me, and it's like your extended hand maybe isn't always welcome or wanted or needed. And like it's hard to know, right? Because we're not we're not that person. We can't possibly know what they're feeling. We can relate, we can empathize in a lot of ways, but we can't ever truly know what is going on inside that other person. No matter how much we try to relate or empathize, we'll never really know what's going on inside another human being, right? And so like that part is hard too, right? Like I want to know, I want to be in there and I want to help, but I can't do that. That's not humanly possible as far as I'm aware. And so it's like that. You've got to have the awareness of like, I need to let go here. I need to let go, and I need to let happen what's going to happen, and just let them know, like, my hand is here if you want it, if you need it, and when you're ready for it, it's here. And maybe that's it. But like, it always feels way more complicated than that when you're in it.
Well, it is because I mean, I know in my own experience, it's like, what did I do? What could I have done differently? What could I have, you know, how could I have approached this situation? And is it the worst of it is it my fault? Am I not good enough?
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Am I somehow am I somehow broken in creating this situation?
I relate to that so much because I feel like I do bring it back to me a lot. Like, am I the cause for this? Am I the reason that it is the degree that it is? Is it something about me? And and I'll be totally open. Like, this is my second marriage. My first marriage ended after 14 years, and a huge piece of it was the depression and feeling like there was nothing I could do to help. And I felt very alone in that relationship. This relationship is very different, but the parallel path is the depression piece. And feeling my feeling of, if there's nothing I can do to help, is this beneficial for you still? Like, it's still beneficial for me. I find all the benefits, like I find so many benefits, but is it still beneficial? And am I the cause of it? If this is like the second time this is happening for me, right? Like, and so like then I start to question, like, oh my gosh, do I cause this in people? do, do I make the other
Well,
person not want to live,
n-
you know?
well, no, no, but we are used to frameworks, so we go to things that are familiar with us, right? And so our lives evolve. In my own world, I had a pattern where I probably have 7 friends who are orphans in one way or another.
Yeah.
How many people do you know that are orphans?
I'm say that again. Audio cut
How
out.
many people do you know that are orphans?
Well, okay, so let me ask you this, because my sister and I consider ourselves orphans, but we were not orphaned as children. We were orphaned as adults, young adults,
Right.
but
These are people who are adopted
okay.
grew up in adopted families.
I think I know one,
Yeah. Well,
maybe two. Yeah.
I probably dated 6 in
Wow.
my, adult life, and have several other friends who are also adopted. Um, were orphans or grew up adopted. And
Yeah.
so that was a pattern.
Interesting.
Now, was I at fault for it? No, it was just a pattern that it was a framework or a pattern that I was in. And I remember going on, I mean, this is probably 15 years ago, who knows? So it's a long time ago. Uh, I remember going on like a match.com date, and I this person seemed just fine, really nice, and I was joining their company, and we were outside at Seattle. We were outside having a dinner at a nice little French bistro down in the Pike Place Market. And within 10 minutes, she told me she was adopted. And I was
You're like,
like,
wow, I'm in this again. Yeah,
whoa,
that's so
wait a
interesting.
second. This is like number 6 or 7 here. And I thought, what? And I thought of the issues that I had had with the people who were adopted, and the framework that this was. And it was people who were universally had been rejected in the deepest sense of their lives by being left by their birth mother or birth family, and then not knowing who they were. So it's a very, very deep fundamental sense of rejection that no amount of material accomplishment could fix. So a lot of these people were very, very driven. Not all of them, but the ones I happen to be in relationship with. I have other friends who have navigated this, being adopted and being in an adopted family. And but all of that can come with really deep issues. And so there was a point where I just decided, I whatever it is, whatever, because I don't necessarily understand it, but I know that it was a framework in my life. I made the decision of, like, whatever this is, with this deep kind of wound that losing your family, losing your birth, rejected by your birth family, and not knowing to be in that pattern anymore. I wasn't going to try to fix it. I wasn't going to be the anchor for that, because I had my own issues to deal with about rejection. Not that I was not orphaned, but definitely I was ostracized by my father. So I didn't have, my father basically removed himself from my life when I was 14 or 15. So I had my own issues to deal with about that, and let go and work on those things. I didn't need to be in parallel with somebody who had been rejected on an even deeper level.
Yeah. And
Right. Even though
I
that was familiar.
yeah. Well, and that's why, something we've talked about in earlier episodes is that like you don't necessarily want to build a relationship where you're connecting through the trauma, right? And it's like you want
Yes.
to build a foundation where you're connecting through something more positive. um
A creative impulse.
yeah, yeah, it's really interesting though. And you know, the buoyancy aspect of this, and it is interesting, these frameworks that we find ourselves in. And you know, I mean, let's talk about the frameworks for a second and finding ourselves in them. This is something that I've been kind of I don't know, like sort of navigating as well. And I think it's very triggered by these conversations we have, is the exploration of like you don't necessarily need to find yourself in it, but rather define what you want to be in, what you want. If you want a framework or need a framework, define the framework and then step into it, rather than waiting to see what framework you're served. Does that make sense?
You'll have to say that again. Just say that again.
Okay, so rather than, okay, let me try to rephrase it, or restate it, the way that I said it. So sometimes you find yourself in a framework like what we both just described. You
Yes.
kind of realize you're in this pattern or a framework that you find yourself in. Something I've been trying to do is, rather than wait to see what framework presents itself around me to discover what framework I'm in, I'm trying to reframe it so that I'm defining the framework I want to step into if I need a framework. You know, sometimes I feel like a framework is good. It gives me some structure and some purpose and some definition. But rather than waiting to see what framework is served to me, I want to step outside a framework, give myself space to feel and you know, lift the buoyancy, and then define the framework that I want to step into, rather than waiting for it to be served to me, or to discover what framework am I in this time, you know, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well,
Like, yeah,
that is the discipline. That's the spiritual discipline that we have an opportunity to do every day, is what world do I want to live in? Do I want to
yeah,
live in a world where I can be grateful? Do I want to live in a world where I am creative with the people around me? I am spending my creative time and energy on with other creative, intelligent people. Do I like where I live? Do I like the people that I encounter casually every day where I live? Do I like my routine? Do I like the food that I'm eating? And then and how do I want to feel every day when I wake up? What are the things that I want to focus on and do? And so that is every day. That is a discipline, right? That's an everyday discipline
it
of
is.
focusing energy, putting mental energy and broadcasting it to the universe so that what we see changes.
And yet we interface with other people going through other things and who are in their own frameworks, and
Mm-hmm.
interfacing with other frameworks. Like I think we've talked about this before as well, but like to kind of resurface, every relationship I try to weigh it like, you know, do the benefits outweigh do the positives outweigh the negatives, right? And if the answer is yes, then I'm in it, right? Like I'm committed to staying in it as long as the positives outweigh the negatives. And it's a constant re-evaluation. I think we need to reevaluate those things routinely. Not just say, well, it was good, you know, 10 years ago, it's still good today, but reevaluate like that the checks and balances of every um yeah. But at the same time,
Well,
yeah, I don't know, it's how we interface with the frameworks that others are going through, like they have their own frameworks, and despite those frameworks, there's still great value in interfacing with somebody who's going through like a, in a, yeah, a framework of depression, for example, right? Like there's still such enormous value and care and love that our frameworks commingle. The overlap of our frameworks still exists, but then
Well,
but then
and
there's the buoyancy aspect.
well, and that's the I guess the if you are buoyant and that person keeps sinking, then the distance, right? The distance naturally grows. And that's the hard part, because you might find yourself swimming back upstream to get back to that person, right? And that's those things. I mean, again, you have to decide how much energy you have for
Always.
all of those things, always.
Exactly.
And where the value is, and where the joy is. And that, I mean, again, those are the things where, for me, this, like, I know with this, the one of the people that I talked about, the person that I've seen just in my community, who I made some deep connections just casually,
Yeah.
because we hang out at the gym. Anybody who's a rock climber, I feel like when I go to the gym, people have, like, the younger people have kind of called me like, oh, he's always here. He knows everyone.
Yeah.
And I try to make it feel that way for myself when I'm at the gym, because I'm very comfortable there. And I've been climbing 41 years, and so there is a certain, uh, there's a certain cred that I have at the gym that other people don't. So I feel very comfortable there, and I can approach people and I can make friends, and I and I do my best to introduce people, because I want my community to grow. But I know with this person that it will always be awkward, because I broke her reality for a moment, and maybe in a year or so, or in a couple of years, her views will evolve. But I know that that person is too distant from where I'm at for me to have an impact
Yeah.
anymore. That's just too, like, and also I just don't, she doesn't know me well enough or long enough, this person, to trust that, right? Or I won't introduce something that it would be arrogant for me to keep trying to be a friend, or
Yeah.
keep trying to be positive, or keep trying to throw a life preserver to somebody who doesn't even believe in life preservers.
Yeah. And that's really it, right? Like there's this, like, in the theme of buoyancy, right? And there's a point at which you just, like, the rafts on a cruise ship or whatever, like they have those little dinghies along the side. I've never actually been on a cruise ship. I've just
Mhm.
seen this in
A
movies, but there's like,
lifeboat,
yeah, the
a,
little
a
lifeboats on the
lifeboat.
side, right? And it's like you just got to be the big ship that just keeps moving, and you have these little things, and anybody that needs it is welcome to pile in. but and it's like it's there. Um, eight maximum capacity, 8 per boat, like, but the boats are there. I don't know. Like I think sometimes as I navigate the buoyancy aspect of what does it mean to be buoyant, and what does it take to remain buoyant? What does it take to be the ship that has all the little, like I don't mind being that, like offering it. But I think being aware of the arrogance aspect of it is very important. Like you don't, you don't want to be like, oh, it's a simple solution, or like I crack wise often at with Ken, who I think takes my sense of humor very well, like really well. Like, he'll say he's having a problem with something, and I'll make a little joke, and then we laugh. And I appreciate that he can laugh with me and appreciate my sense of humor in the situation. That's what I bring, right? Like, often is just maybe a dark sense of humor too, but there's that is a buoyancy. I don't know if I would call it a technique or whatever, but it also, I feel like before I can serve that out, I have to know that it's okay, right? Like that he's gonna accept it and not feel like I've broken his framework, so to speak, right? Like, for me to make
Mhm.
a comment that is ha ha ha, about your very darkest times in life, it takes a very, very specific kind of relationship to be able to navigate that. And we
Mhm.
have that to a certain degree, right? But then there's, I have friends who are also, navigating their own frameworks of challenge, and maybe struggling with buoyancy, and maybe buoyancy isn't even on the menu at this point for some folks, right? And yeah, for me, buoyancy is what I'm really grappling with right now. It's really what I want to understand, what buoyancy means to me, and what are the tools that I use to remain so. And so when I'm feeling um weighted, like there's an anchor attached to my buoy, how do I free myself from that and remain buoyant? Like, the tools for that is what I'm really trying to sort out right now. What is it like how do I detach the anchors that life, attaches occasionally?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they are those anchors, they're attachments to wanting control, wanting approval, or wanting security. Those are the things that anchor us
Yeah,
emotionally, right? Like
interesting.
control, approval, or security. Every emotion can be reduced in some way to the need for approval, the need for control, or the need for security. And so then, if we understand what is anchoring us or how we are attached to something that is taking us down, if we look at it and look at the feelings behind it, we can reduce those to, do I need approval at this moment? Am I feeling acknowledgement? Hey, I'm here, right? Does my ego need to be satisfied? That's one. The other one is, do I need control here? Am I trying to fix something so that I don't feel these feelings, right? Or do I need security? I'm feeling totally unsafe and I don't know what's going to happen and I need some place, or I need to feel safe. And so everything can be reduced in that way, right?
I,
If
I
you're
like
a
the
honey badger,
security one too. Like, I think the security one has several branches. Well, they all do, right? All of these three categories have a lot
they
of sub
sure they,
branches.
they they have branches. So if you take, you can have, say you have, uh you could have a feeling of fear or anger, and those could reduce down to any you might need security, you might need approval. So those can all be components. So any feeling eventually has those needs underneath it in some proportion or another. And so then the question is, am I willing in this moment to let go of the need for control, or am I willing to let go of the need for approval, or am I willing to let go of the need for security, right? That I am safe, or I am appreciated, or am I willing to let go of like needing to be appreciated, needing security, or needing control at this moment in time? Not forever, but just this moment. And these are things from this that are used in the Sedona method that help us let go when we feel like we're being when we're stuck on something, when something is emotionally bringing us down.
It's funny as with the security aspect, I relate. Like my little dotted line is the reassurance that I'm not the cause of this problem, like, or what I see as a problem. Like, but this goes back to like something you said earlier in this episode, was just like, did I do or say something to cause this? Right. That's a
Right.
piece that I feel like I go back to often. And like I was saying, like, am I causing this? Am I the reason for this existing in this other person? And that security piece for me comes back to like a reassurance, almost like I need to hear a reassurance that I either am or I am not, right? Like, and if I am, then we take action in that direction. But if I'm not, then like we're cool, and I can go back to like focusing on how I remain buoyant in my little, creating
Well,
my
that is,
framework of buoyancy.
well, I would say that's the need for approval, the
In
need
a
for
way.
security,
Oh, okay.
the need for security is literally physical security, where you might feel like your physical security is in jeopardy, or your home, or your material world is going to collapse in a way. But
Yeah.
the need for approval is, I'm okay, it's not my fault, it's not.
Okay.
And right, and so that's a little bit of a distinction there.
So let me ask
And
this
then the
question.
need the need for control is obvious.
Right. And well, and that's where, like, I know I do come from a need for control, sort of. Historically, my need for control was very anally retentive, with order and tidiness and stuff. And that's something that, like, once I had kids, once I let go of a lot of that control, to just exist in the best way that I could, because if I held onto those frameworks, I was going to lose my mind. And so like those got a lot more relaxed over time. But that distinction, how important do you think the distinction is between approval versus security? Like, is it?
Well, they're all these things are related, because it's our ego wanting to justify its place in the world, right? It's
Yeah.
so that how we describe it isn't necessarily as important as our willingness to let go of the need for approval, security, or control in any given moment, and then see what happens. Because the moment you let go, then you can bob to the surface and see what's really there, right?
Yeah.
Versus trying to affect what we're holding on to, which could be a person, which could be an idea about ourselves. It could be an idea about somebody else. It could be an idea about a relationship. And those thoughts and those ideas that are spinning around in our head, those are creating the emotions which make us uncomfortable. And the only way to change the emotions is to change the thoughts and the frameworks behind them. Right. And so you either change the framework, or you change your material circumstance. You get the fuck out of whatever is causing, right? Like you can let go of the need for security, but if there is, and then see what's really there. And if you really are unsafe, if somebody is trying to murder you or drown you,
Right. Right.
then right, if somebody really is, then you do need to change your material circle. You do need to get the fuck out of the situation.
Sure.
But
Sure.
if it is just a mental construct, then there are things you can do to let go of the mental construct, and that will change the feeling. The
Yeah.
trick is the feelings are our radar. Feelings are our radar for what's going on around us. And do we want to keep feeling these feelings over? If we're feeling the feelings over and over, and we keep having to spend our energy on letting go of certain thought patterns or certain situations, is there a point where it's like, I don't know that I can, like, I don't know that I have unlimited energy to keep being buoyant in this situation? Or do I want to keep, is this framework one that I can change, right? Like, because we're creating a material circumstance that has frameworks, and then we're mixing our frameworks with other people. And
Yep.
again, we're doing cost benefit analysis,
Right. Exactly.
right?
Constantly,
All the
right?
time.
Yeah.
But the trick always is to, what is the thought pattern behind this? Because the thought pattern is what's creating the emotion. And the emotion is telling us something about the framework that we are invested in, that we have committed to, or that is in front of us at this moment. And if it's constantly or making me feel like I want control, or making me feel like I want approval, or making me feel like I need security, then and it keeps happening over and over, then maybe all of my spiritual Aikido skills aren't enough,
Yeah. Well, and that's
right?
where, like for as far as the tools, this goes back to the tools. I think like at least where I'm at right now, right? The tools, surfacing the tools in a way that I can communicate is a way of helping me sort through what tools I have. And I am not able to articulate what tools I have at this moment, but I want to be able to. And I feel like somehow like being able to articulate the tools I have is sort of the bridge that gets me to the place where I'm like, okay, I've got this, I've got this next few miles of the journey on lockdown, right? So like, I don't know. I don't know. So like, I think I'm still kind of grappling at tools. Like, okay, so let's think of this from a listener's aspect, right? Like, if somebody is actually listening to this podcast and they're saying, and they're
where we
saying, well,
where we
what?
unravel our personal lives.
Yeah, right. Like, but there's something to take away here. And what is it? And it's like there is a tool set for buoyancy to a certain degree, at least. But what is it, right? Like, and a lot of it is just mindset. Like, when I go back to it, it's a lot of it is going back to kind of so a few bullet points throughout this dialogue. It's really like it's my own mindset, realizing what I have control over and what I don't. It's being able to like to step away from a framework I might be in and realizing I can design the framework I want to exist within. Design that framework that I want to be in, step back into it and make sure, then do my checks and balances, right? Like, does everything still make sense? When I step into the framework of what I want life to look like and for things to be like, does everything still make sense? Everything that is around me and that is a part of my day-to-day existence, does everything still make sense? And then that's like a rinse and repeat sort of cycle. And I guess I feel like I'm working through this out loud. So, but yeah, like that to me is exactly like that's a tool in a way. It's just the realization that you can design your own framework. And this goes back to almost every episode that we've ever had here, Stephan, where we say like you don't have to be attached to what was. The things that defined you in the past don't have to be what define you right now or moving forward or ever again. And I think those are important things to recap, because I don't know, again, I need for myself sometimes to just hear it outside my own head. It's okay to not be attached to what was. What was does not have to define you now or ever again. What, the traumas that affected us up until this point, this moment right now, don't have to define us. They don't have to be a part of the framework that we create for moving forward. Does that make sense?
Well, and the frameworks we create are arbitrary. They are
Yes, that too.
whatever, like I can call myself whatever I want, right? Like
Right.
I can define myself any way I want. Now, whether other people believe that or not is another thing, but that's because we have frameworks for everyone who's around us too,
Yeah.
right? Like we arbitrarily decide what we choose to experience and how we choose to experience people around us, and what we take in, and how we define or judge them or place them in our own, where we place them in our own life. So all of these things are arbitrary. Ultimately, we are always have to go back to ourselves. How can I be free so that I have the clearest view of what's around me and who I am really, outside of, because again, the frameworks are arbitrary. They're just part of our daily mental discipline, whether we accept them as default by what society gives us or whether we think we are actively creating them. Doesn't matter. They're still arbitrary. They're not who, the frameworks are not who we are. They're just a way for us to navigate. Who we are is so much more vast and complicated and deep. And that's the ultimate way to navigate. We always come back to the ultimate way to navigate is keep going back to who we are and letting go
Yeah.
even of the frameworks, because the only way to really be buoyant, even the framework is also something that is bringing us down to some extent, even though we might be developing lighter and better frameworks that let's say, if we're using the float downstream or the life-saving metaphor, that we can take with us, right? The framework might be the goggles and the types of swimwear and the types of flippers we have on to make our way downstream in life. And we're getting better and better. But ultimately, if we are free of all of that, we can go wherever we want unencumbered. And that's the ultimate, right? That's the ultimate, to me, the ultimate spiritual result is to be able to navigate from a truly inward point of view and understanding who am I and what are the things that are going to allow me to express, like how can I express myself and understand that everyone else has the same opportunity, and I don't need to fix or change or mess with other people's reality. They can have their reality.
Yeah.
They can have their reality, and I don't need to fix it or change it. I just need to keep expressing myself as purely as I can without fear of losing approval, without fear for my physical safety, without fear for losing control of my life or losing control of somebody else who's in my life. Because that's the other thing. If somebody is sinking or if somebody is drifting away, we're losing control of the way we thought the relationship was going to work. Right. And that is also, that's also a big letting go, because certain people, we meet certain people, and I will apply this to the instances I've been talking about in this podcast. We meet people and we can instantly project the potential, can see the potential, especially if we're thinking positively about someone, and the positive qualities that we see, we can instantly project the potential. And then the hard part is then seeing what's really there, and or seeing that changing, and then not being able to let go of the picture that we painted, of the beautiful picture that we painted, right? Because when we see people, we paint. At least I want to paint the most beautiful picture of someone,
Absolutely.
whether they believe in it or not. And
Yeah.
so then having to let go of that beautiful picture I painted is hard. And then also the guilt of having painted a picture that really is bullshit at that point,
An
right?
Instagram feed.
Right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean,
The only
Instagram
positive
is
side.
right. Instagram is the perfect metaphor. It's like no one can really live their Instagram life.
No,
Impossible, right?
except for
We just, yeah.
it's funny. I remember I actually Ken and I had a conversation about that once, about creating a really real Instagram account that just showed like the downsides of life and the sadness and realities of things. And Ken was like, "Who would subscribe to that? Nobody wants to see that,"
Well,
which made me laugh.
what is the app where at a random point of the day you just get a notification to take a picture of
Be
whatever's going
Real.
on?
Sophia uses it. It's called Be Real, I think.
Yeah.
And post, so she's like, "Oh, Be Real just went off," like it surprises you and you're just supposed to capture it in the moment. I had never heard of it
Yeah.
until yeah, my 17-year-old was like, "Oh, it's my Be Real just went off, mom. Like, I'm taking a picture of you because you're we were at like Dave and Buster's the other day and her Be Real went off." And so I'm always excited when it goes off in her world. It goes off and I'm a part of it because I'm like, I was there for that. As a mother, that feels really good that I was in your Be
Yeah,
Real.
see?
Yeah.
Even the Be Real app gives you approval,
Yeah.
right? It's approval.
Weird
It's
thing.
an
I had
approval
never even
machine.
heard of it, but yeah, it is it's an interesting thing, that approval seeking, which, it's funny because in so many ways I feel like I don't need approval, but I do. Like there are things that are important to
Of
me, right?
course.
And this comes back to like the framework we design for ourselves in a lot of ways. Like I have a framework that I've designed for myself, which I always call like the first step, right? Is your compass of intention, and it's the things that are important to you. And this comes from the statement you made when I was really in a state of career and life burnout. I was going through grief and the loss of my dad. I was really trying to figure out a lot in my life at
Oh,
this moment.
I've lost you.
Uh-oh. I see you. Can you see me now?
You
Uh,
there for about 5 to 10 seconds. But
okay.
I think the point you were making was that it's not it's not what you want or where you want to go, but it's important right
It's
now.
what's important. It's all coming back to like what's important to you. What are your values? What are the values that drive the decisions that you make in life? And when I bring everything back to that, it's a compass that guides me through the tricky waters, right? It's like it's my navigation system. And like sometimes things feel murky, the fog sets in as my we're going to keep going on the sort of boat at sea sort of thing. The fogs roll in, the icebergs are there, the obstacles, and I have to navigate these tricky waters and maybe storms. but like when I have a set of values that I can go to, that's the framework for me. Is it's what's important to you in this life that we're living.
Mhm.
What is important, what is truly important, and few things highlight the value of what's important. The way that loss, like significant personal loss, really highlights those things. And that was what I was going through when I kind of came up with my framework, which, number one being compass of intention. What is important to you? And it's, it's funny because I thought those things changed, and they may. I haven't gotten that far in life yet, but when I went back repeatedly year after year from 2012 to now, every time I go back to that list that I made, I was able to move one thing off and realize it was more of a goal that supported my what's important and not an actual what's important. So I moved it off and put it into like my second step. It's like goals. Um, but that framework of what's important and asking and checking in constantly on what is important, really, really important. Being able to go to that list and go, wow, you know what? That list is actually still the same as it was then. The things that are important to me, that matter to me in this world, in this like lifetime, have actually remained pretty solidly consistent. And that's why it's served as a compass for me. And so I do reevaluate it. I do look at it again. I actually have it on my calendar as an alert: reevaluate the compass of intention. And I go back to it when my little calendar alert goes off. Every 2 months I have it to go off, and I reevaluate it, and I think about it, and I look at it. And often I'm like, are these still the values of what's important to me?
Yeah, well, that is a great discipline to do that and to keep asking yourself that. And then in between those moments, we have our emotions to guide us. And when we're feeling things we don't like feeling, then we go inside. And if we can let those feelings go, we can be more of ourselves and more attentive to what we want in that moment, right? Like you've installed those. And so the emotions should be the guide to if we're in the right time or right place, or and then how do we let go of that? If the emotions are taking us to a place where we don't want to be, how do we let go of those thoughts or that situation that is putting us in, you know, weighing us down, or
Yeah. And how
taking
do
our
we,
buoyancy
right?
down?
And that's like,
Well,
that's the ongoing practice, sort of, right? Like that's the work in a lot of ways, is like
well,
reminding
there's
yourself that you can let go, though, and that they don't have to define you. They don't have to define who you are.
Yeah, and well, and again, for those of us with resource and time, and we can physically remove ourselves from a situation. We can emotionally, we can take the time to work through something to let go of the need for approval, security, or control. Because in most cases, we are never really in physical danger, although it feels that way, right? The need for security is because at one point in our evolutionary history, there were real tigers trying to kill us. We were not
Right.
we were not the top of the food chain. And so the need for security comes from the concept, or the evolutionary path that we have been on, is that there was a period in our evolution where we were not at the top of the food chain. So the need for security was very high. And so it was very important. But now the need for the security has been confused and
It's
misused.
different, right? Like, I mean,
It's
What is
Well,
your
it's
idea
different.
of security, right? Like financial security, having a home, having food.
Right. Yes. And it's security is that I may die. Right. Ultimately,
Right.
security is, if we think of it in the long game of having evolved from, you know, cave people walking the savannah, or killing animals for their survival, and animals trying to kill them, then it is about life and death. But and so now we have financial has become life and death, and there are other things that have
That's a
become
funny
life and
one for
death
me. But
matters to
yeah,
people.
like
Well,
yeah,
it is funny. It is funny to any of us who've experienced a certain level of financial security, but for other people, it's,
very
you
real.
know, it's very real
But
and very,
I was gonna say, but also, I mean, by contrast, who've experienced financial security, but also have experienced extreme lack of financial security, where it's not like if you've lived with way worse, you know that you survived that. And if you can survive that, everything else feels like gravy, so to speak. I mean, that's my
well,
personal
true.
experience. But, and I know that like it's not my today reality, but having been in places that were very scary financially, um, it almost gives me a bravery. But like if I could do that, I can do this. But my dad, and I think that I get it more from my dad and his experiences, right? Like he was like, oh, if we had to live in a tent, but he did actually live in a tent. Did I ever live in a tent? No, but I know his story, right? And he survived. And so like lived in a tent, no electricity, no running water, like had to go down the street to get those things, bum off of neighbors and whatnot, and be the kids that didn't have those things in a neighborhood of kids that did. And that was my dad's story, not my story, but his sharing that story gives me a sense of rooting and confidence that's maybe unfounded in some ways, but I feel like it's also given me courage and confidence.
Well, I have similar experiences, my own homelessness, my own being in debt, having failed businesses
Mm-hmm.
followed by successful businesses, um and so I also have that experience of, I know that I can get through that,
Right.
that I am living in the most prosperous, powerful, lucky time of my life right now.
Yeah.
And when I see what other people are afraid of, it doesn't necessarily make sense to me, because I know that I have gotten through those things through great terror in my life,
Yeah.
things that created great terror for me in my life, and great depression. So I know that that I had a path through all of that, and that I can face those things clearly now. But for others to assume that others have that, or that we can fix it for them,
It goes to the
is
arrogance.
arrogant.
Yeah,
Right?
it really
People
is.
and people don't like to hear that. I had a conversation with somebody, one of my friends, who saw one of his nieces suffering, and he decided to have her, and she is also dealing with depression, and he decided that, as the elder in the family and somebody who cares deeply about this person, that he would sit her down and somehow give her the inspirational speech about getting her act together. And of course,
It blew up. Yeah.
this did not cure her alcoholism. It pushed her further into shame,
Yeah.
and right,
Yeah.
it didn't.
Doesn't help.
It
And
didn't,
that's
it didn't help at all because that person needed to decide for themselves that either I am drowning, I need a new framework, I need help, or that person needs to decide that. And until then, they're doing it just to maintain control in their own life. They're doing what they're
exactly.
doing because it's their framework and it's what feels safe, if what feels comfortable, what it feels like them, and whether they believe they're stuck being them or not, that's all part of their deal. So we just have to keep deciding that we are going to be buoyant. And that might mean that we end up floating downstream away from certain things and that we bob into new things along the way. And and all we can do is keep letting go along the way of the need to control these things that have to do with others, other people's frameworks, other, things that make us feel uncomfortable, but over which we have no real control.
Damn. That's
Bam.
it. This was a deep one today. I feel like this was
This
I
was
feel
the
like that
life-saving
really,
episode.
right? The buoyancy episode. It's, uh
This is
yeah.
I'll call it the buoyancy, life-saving and buoyancy episode.
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot to soak in from this episode, Stefan, and like and process. Like I feel like I have a lot to process. And I think that that's actually a wonderful way to close this week because I have a lot to process. And I think that gives me work to do. It gives me focus and it gives me motivation on my buoyancy efforts. It really does.
Yeah. Well, we can't be buoyant if we're holding on to stuff.
It's true. Let go of the anchors. Cheers. No,
All
I
right.
all right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for working through the technology challenges we had this week and for
Yeah.
as always the insight and perspective and experience that you bring to these calls. I am grateful.
Wow. Well, I appreciate your catalytic efforts every time we do this to be open and broaden the conversation. Really, I wouldn't have thought of some of these things. And certainly the life-saving metaphor is one I'm going to be pondering as well.
Me
So
too.
until next week,
All right.
we
Take
will
care. Remain
unconstrained.
buoyant. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.